So
Yeah, they were.
if, let's start with 7 realities. Ashok, I heard you mention you're leaving earlier, right? So
Yes,
you
yes.
can, yeah,
Can you
you can start here.
can
Please.
you put it on screen? It might take a 5-10 seconds because I don't know what happens, but it takes around 5-10 seconds after you put it on. Anyway,
Yeah,
have you?
I already shared it. I'm sharing it
Yeah,
again.
yeah, yeah. I can see it.
Okay.
Avatar Meher Baba ki Jai. Uh, is my voice clear?
Yes, yes, please go ahead.
Okay. Avatar Meher Baba ki Jai. The 7 realities: existence, love, sacrifice, renunciation, knowledge, control, and surrender. I give no importance to creed, dogma, caste, or the performance of religious ceremonies and rites, but to the understanding of the following. 1. The only real existence is the one and only God, who is the self in every finite self. 2. The only real love is the love for this infinity God, which arouses an intense longing to see, know, and become one with its truth, God. 3. The only real sacrifice is that in which, in pursuance of this love, all things, body, mind, position, welfare, even life itself, are sacrificed. 4. The only real renunciation is that which abandons, even in the midst of worldly duties, all selfish thoughts and desires. 5. The only real knowledge is the knowledge that God is the inner dweller in good people and in so called bad, in saint and in so called sinner. This knowledge requires you to help all equally as circumstances demand without expectation of reward. When compared to take part in a dispute, to act without the slightest trace of enmity or hatred, or to try to make others happy with brotherly or sisterly feeling for each one, and to harm no one in thought, word, or deed, not even those who harm you. 6. The only real control is the discipline of the senses to abstain from indulgence in low desires, which alone ensures absolute purity of character. 7. The only real surrender is that in which poise is undisturbed by any adverse circumstance, and the individual, amidst every kind of hardship, is resigned with perfect calm to the will of God. Avatar Meher Baba ki Jai. Thank you, Karthik.
May you have a good trip to Mehrabad, wherever you're going.
Yes,
And
yes. Thank you for that.
yeah,
And I'll try to, I mean, if you want to, when I'm there at the Samadhi or outside the Samadhi, I'll at least try to show you that if you want. But
sure.
I'll reach by around 12, I think. 12 to
Yeah,
12.
yeah, yeah. No problem.
I'll just give you a call if you're free.
No, yeah, sure.
Yeah. Jay Baba, you all, I'll be listening to the proceedings, but, and I'll let you know when I can, if I can read if you
Sure.
want. Okay. Jay
Yeah.
Baba, you two all have a
Jai Baba.
good reading of discourses and a good weekend. Bye.
Thank you. So where are we? We extended discourses to include the part two of Listen Humanity. In that, we took up the first one, which is death and immortality, and we were at the point of I think we're almost at the fag end of the first chapter. So we understood the various things that happen during death. And let's continue and finish that chapter and go to the next one. Any thoughts before I start? Okay, so it's page 107 if you're on the physical book. With that, let's get started. Is my screen still visible?
Yes, yes.
So we start from the second para. Sar Meher Baba ki Jai. If the individual soul has been exhausting an excess of evil sanskaras and has therefore been undergoing a hell state, he may jump into a new incarnation in which good sanskaras tend to dominate. The cause of this unexpected reversal is to be found in the strength of flow of the sanskaric currents. At the time he incarnates, the individual has already been relieved of the excess of his evil sanskaras, and the strong tide of his good sanskaras was about to predominate. Consequently, it is the vigorous current of the good sanskaras which motivates him in his new incarnation. Thus, a man who had been a profligate in his last life might begin in his new incarnation with a marked inclination towards asceticism. So, this is after the heaven and hell state, and you've had an excess of evil sanskaras before the death in that particular incarnation, and you tend and you also created repository of good sanskaras, which make you get to the other side. Continue. Conversely, a swing over can occur from good to bad when one jumps into an incarnation from a heaven state in which the preponderance of good sanskaras had been exhausted through intense imaginative pleasure. The moment of incarnation into a new physical body is precipitated when the good and bad sanskaras have almost balanced each other and the tide of bad sanskaras is about to predominate. Changeover at incarnation from good to bad or from bad to good should not be taken as a universal law. Reversal of individual nature is frequent, but cases are also quite common in which the individual remains persistently good or bad for several incarnations. In such cases, incarnation occurs before the opposite type of samskara has built up a sufficient current of flow to result in its predominance. The beginning of the true existence of the individual self occurs at the moment when consciousness, in the course of its evolution, adopts its first human form. This also represents the terminal step in its evolutionary development. This is the moment when the limited individuality is crystallized as the I that exhibits the basic characteristics of self-consciousness. This is the true birth of the individual. I've got a question. Which is the chapter in Discourses that talks about the balancing of sanskaras and especially the yo-yo of good and bad sanskaras? Come on. You there, come on?
Jai Baba. So you're talking about balancing of good and bad sanskaras, the ego and its termination. There are part one, part two, part three. That one
Or is
definitely
it
has.
sanskaras? Or is it sanskaras? No, on sanskaras, you're right. This is removal of sanskaras, which are three parts. Ego, right?
Correct. Correct. It goes into really deep, the heterogeneous sanskaras and the homogeneous sanskaras and the conscious and the subconscious mind.
Ego lives through opposites of experience. Yeah. Part two, intensified conflict. Ego lives through opposites of experience. Ego, no. There's one part early in the early stage of discourses which specifically talks about this balancing and the
Elimination.
need
Even,
for alternation between births. Why I'm curious is I want to make sure that we link this there because this
right.
explanation is much superior to what we find in discourses, point number one. And point number two, if you recollect why we even are reading part two of Lesson Humanity, is to link these up so that next time we read discourses, we can actually read them alongside or in sequence with the discourses chapters that are linked. Right?
Right.
So anyway, more on that when we finish the chapter. Just keep that in mind. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So coming to the
Alex,
evolution end.
if
Yeah,
I may,
Ashok, you're saying something?
yeah, if I may add from a very balance sheet perspective, that sanskars have to be the debits and credits, or that means the good and the bad have to be absolutely equal. That's a precondition for for going up the path and for God realizing.
Yes.
I'm just
See,
adding that.
it's the same place, it's the same chapter that covers. So the chapter starts with opposites and then goes to this mathematical or perfect balance of good and bad, right? That's how the chapter ends. I
Yeah,
find it. But thank you for that thought. But the idea is I struggled with the first part of that chapter because I did not understand this balancing very well. Not balancing, the alternating. What does this alternating mean, and why should that happen? Okay, I've been good, but then here the way the last few paras have described it makes it much more easier to relate to. So just my personal experience. Thanks, Ashok. So on
I,
the evolutions,
to my mathematical mind, it came out. I just said I'll share
yeah,
this.
yeah, your accounting mind.
Yeah, accounting.
So coming to the footnote, it talks about the beginning of the true existence of the individual self occurs at the moment when consciousness in the course of evolution reaches the human form. Not to be confused with the manifestation of the individual soul, which occurred at the very beginning of the long evolutive process through the various subgaseous, gaseous, stone, metal, vegetable, fish, and animal forms. So that's, I think, obvious, but being mentioned here clear to clarify. Continuing, the true death of the individual occurs at the moment when he transcends his limited individuality or separative consciousness by being taken up in the truth consciousness of the unlimited and undivided being of God. The true death of the individual consists in the complete disappearance of the limiting ego mind that has created the sanskaric veil of ignorance. True death is a far more difficult process than physical death, but when it occurs through the grace of the Master, it takes no longer than the twinkling of an eye. The dissolution of the ego mind and the freeing of the soul from the illusion of separative limited individuality are known as liberation. The sanskara ridden ego mind can never attain any real poise. It vacillates in constant rhythm to the alternating dominant sanskaras. Consciousness can attain true poise only when the ego mind with all its attendant sanskaras terminates. This is effected through the emergence of the unlimited and ultra sanskaric individuality that comes into its own upon the inheriting of consciousness, eternal existence, which is true immortality. This is also a new idea. So consciousness can attain true poise only when the ego mind with all its attendant samskaras terminates. That we have heard in discourses many times. This is a new phraseology, the next line. This is effected up through the emergence of the unlimited and ultra sanskaric individuality. I like that. There is an individuality that persists, but that persisting individuality at the time of immortality is ultra sanskaric. So there is it's beyond sanskaras, which is interesting, or rather a nice way to clarify. Right? So let me mark it out. That comes into its own upon the inheriting of consciousness, eternal existence, which is true immortality. Let us continue. The infinite poise of consciousness in realization should not be confused with the semblance of sanskaric equilibration that is approached by the limited ego mind in discarnate life in the hell or heaven state. Such ineffable poise is unapproachable by the full consciousness in man as long as it remains clouded by the slightest traces of the limiting ego mind. At the time of taking on a new physical body, the good and the bad sanskaras of the individual are almost in balance. However, there is always a slight ascendance at this time of either the good or the bad. sanskaras. They are never in perfect balance, nor do they in any manner overlap or cancel one another. Complete poise can exist only when the two opposite classes of sanskaras are so qualitatively and quantitatively opposed that they exactly cancel one another. Ashok's point earlier. Continuing, when opposite sanskaras are not only equal in strength but are also or in exact qualitative opposition, they cancel each other and can no longer act as a semi-automatic subjective propelling forces, but are transmuted into consummate understanding that is free from opposing reactions to life. This is the state of liberation. This is dawn in full flow. Right? I'll read this line again. He's talking about a simple concept, but just see the flowery expressions and beautiful way which makes it easier to understand. Repeat. When opposite sanskaras are not only equal in strength, but also are in exact qualitative opposition. So they have the same strength and they are also opposed qualitatively, good versus bad. They cancel each other and can no longer act. They cancel each other, so they have no power anymore. But when they had power, what were they able to do? They could, and they can no longer act as a semi-automatic subjective propelling forces. Why do you think he's saying semi-automatic? I thought Sanskaric was automatic. We'll get to that in a minute. Let me finish this. So they cancel each other and can no longer act as a semi-automatic subjective propelling forces, but are transmuted. What is transmuted? Go from one form to another into consummate understanding that is free from opposing reactions to life. So you get out of the reincarnation cycle, and there's no opposing ideas of sanskaras coming and competing with each other, which is what we saw at the beginning of the last page. This is the state of liberation. Now, my question is, what is sanskaras being semi-automatic when in incarnation state? Anybody? So if it is semi-automatic, is there a little bit of a free will? Is there some sort of judgment? Is there some sort of role for ego, mind, perfect master? Cool. It's all. I don't know why he's using semi-automatic here. Anybody?
I thought I thought of the word free will exactly the way you thought. Maybe
Yeah.
some from
So I am the only thing I'm thinking, Sunil, is when you're in between states. I mean, in the heaven and hell states, is there some use of, you can't even call it viveka. I don't know how. Probably the closest is, like you said, free will, and you say, okay, I will finish this part of my sanskaras in the next birth and go to and then go on later on. I mean, the use of the word semi seems to suggest there is some sort of role for something other than automatic determination of the next step, which is what I assume sanskaras to be operating normally. Sama, what do you think?
Well, I think what you said was, in between reincarnations, um, you go see your, uh, you see your prescripted plan and the actuals. And then again, when you're taking a new birth, you go through this, re-engineering process where what are the sanskaras that you need to work on. So definitely there is a kind of a free will there
Yes. Hmm.
because we do are programming our next life, and so you can interpret it in that sense. But it definitely, I need to read it properly. I'm not able to get the right gist right now, but that's what I think. Yeah, Baba.
Yeah, I think reading the heaven and hell state again in the context of what level of freedom seems to be suggested by Baba in discourses and in any other places would be a good way to understand if we can actually use the word free will. Because again, free will is like we discussed last Sunday, is not really free. And Baba has said that very clearly. He said there's nothing like free will. So, what is this level of freedom, this semi automatic operation of sanskaras, is something that we need to explore a little, but that's some homework for us. Let's continue. The seeming balance that is approximated by the individual before each birth may be compared to a tug of war in which opposite forces are active, although neither may predominate. The matching of forces then has only to be slightly disturbed and the entire situation becomes subject to change. In the same manner, the pseudo poise of sanskaras present at the time of birth has only to be slightly disturbed in order to imprint the sanskaric pattern for the individual life. That's clear. So the pseudo poise is it's sad to use the word pseudo to describe the beautiful stage of infancy and childhood, but that's the pseudo poise. I guess that's what Don is saying here. Pseudo poise is the period when the sanskaras are with you. You have taken a birth, but then their operations and activation and actual power of driving your actions are very, very latent and very, very mild. So that's the stage probably for the first couple of years as a human birth. Isn't that what
See,
he's saying?
Jai Baba, what I felt was also remember that when you're going through the planes of involution, right up to the sixth plane, there is duality, which means there are certain finer sanskaras that need to be worked on. And an individual soul aspirant cannot wipe out the sanskaras. You still need the help of the teacher, of the guru, to take you to the next level. So that's why he says the pseudo voice of sanskaras present at the time of birth, or even when you're living that particular life.
Mhm.
So unless one gets the grace of the guru, the sanskaras cannot be completely eradicated. The only thing you can do is you're going from gross sanskaras to subtle sanskaras to mental sanskaras, which is what the chapter uh, God is infinite love, the final chapter in Discourses talks about, because it's all about lust in the initial stage when you're in the gross form. So you have to get over the five physical senses. Then you're going through that energy phase. Lust becomes longing to be united with the beloved. Then longing becomes surrender, where resignation to the will of the beloved. So there also lust is 25%, but it's sublimated and latent, but not expressed in gross or subtle form. So that is why, the other uh, thing that Baba said was the chasm between the first plane and the seventh plane, and the chasm between the sixth plane and the seventh plane is infinite. So the only advantage you have in the fifth and sixth plane is you don't regress back to the stone state, because after you cross the fourth plane, then you're safe. Then you're on the other side. So sanskaras
Yeah,
are always there
I
from the
think you're
sixth
going
plane.
very far away. My understanding of this, and let me repeat what I'm saying. I'll just read the line again. In the same manner, the pseudo poise of sanskaras present at the time of birth. He's specifically saying present at the time of birth. Birth obviously refers to the stage of human birth in reincarnations, has only to be slightly disturbed in order to imprint the sanskaric pattern for the individual life. My understanding of this karma is the period when I have gone through the heaven and hell state, figured out what is my next predominance, bad, good, certain type of sanskaras over the other based on my past reincarnation. Then I pick a particular womb to be using as my next parental context. I get born, so that's the birth. And at that time of the birth, for a bit of time, I'm actually in a pseudo poise. So a child does not do intelligent action. A child is, of course, having sanskaras, but they are so mild and latent and not capable of expression and driving his or her actions in a way that happens maybe 2 to 3 years later. E- Even a child prodigy can't display prodigal stuff in the cradle, in infancy. That's what I understand. I hope you
No,
agree.
yes, yes. I think what you're saying is basically that aspect that the first 7 years of a childhood,
Exactly. I was not
the
sure of the
sanskaras
period.
don't
7. Thank you.
predominate. Yeah.
Hmm.
So what we
Hmm.
are doing here is basically in those first 7 years of the child, because the sanskaras are latent, so there is a certain kind of pseudo poise of
Poise. There is a
sanskaras.
poise, but it's not.
Correct.
It's not to be comparable to poise, equipoise that Baba wants us to
Yes.
have,
Correct.
or a
Correct.
superior form of closer to liberation. It's a pseudo poise. It's because it's latent.
Yes. Correct.
Okay. Thanks. Okay. Let's continue. In the state of realization, the opposite types of sanskaras interpenetrate each other in such a manner that they cease to exist as opposing forces. The resultant is not a state of sanskaric tension, but a state of complete internal neutralization in which the sanskaras have ceased to exist as propulsive elements. This is not a mere state of exact mathematical equalization of opposites, but a state beyond the opposites of true poise rooted in unbroken consciousness of infinite unity. So he brings out the real poise now, right? So they are no longer opposite. They don't interpenetrate each other, and it's complete internal neutralization in which the sanskaras have ceased to exist as propulsive elements, right? We continue. During the entire long period of preceding, sorry, during the entire long period preceding realization, the mind acts in each single circumstance according to the dictates of the preponderant sanskaras. As in a tug of war, there is a movement in the direction of greater pull, but that motion represents only a small proportion of the total energy spent, for most of it was used up in the opposition of forces. It's a very key point. So, what what is, I mean, subtle point, I would say. I'll read that line again. As in a tug of war, there is a movement in the direction of greater pull, but that motion represents only a small proportion of the total energy spent, for most of it was used up in the opposition of forces. So, if you take it mathematically, if there are 100 units of power being spent in a tug of war between two parties, when now let's say there's side left, side right, and there's 100 units of energy being spent, A prevails. So the tugging of A side or the left side is dominating there, which means that there is a 20 units delta on this side. So 70 here, 30 the other side. 100 units is all. I mean, total energy available is only 100, right? So 70 is dominating on the left side, 30 is on the right side. Now, the key part is 50 of that 70 is actually going to oppose the right side. Only 20. Maybe it's even more subtler. It may be like 5, 55, 45. So it's only 5 that is truly on the left side alone. 50 is spent on neutralizing right, which is, see it in the context of sanskaras, and it's a beautiful analogy. Simply beautiful analogy. So what you're trying to achieve in a reincarnation is is spent maximum on opposition and minimum on making progress. Beautiful explanation. Continues. So let's the tug of war example continues, and there's a footnote as well. So let's go there. In realization, there is an entire disappearance or cancellation of the sanskaras, such as would occur in a tug of war when the opposing parties finish the game and stop pulling in opposite directions. On the other hand, in near equalization of sanskaric tension, there's only a temporary arrest of expressed activity. Then, when some new or outside factor upsets the equilibrium, reactions occur which show that the situation had been quiet not because of a lack of propelling forces, but rather because they had temporarily cancelled one another. And there's a footnote. This analysis has the greatest possible practical significance in considering the adjustment of the individual to his environment. It often happens that balancing forces in environment tend to bring a very difficult personal situation into temporary equilibrium. At this point, the individual tends to regard the situation as solved because he is no longer aware of any intense localized pressure. However, eventually those balancing forces will shift, and once more the situation will seem to fly out of control. This is usually very discouraging because the sequence may be repeated several times without apparent improvement. The individual then often asks himself why he should continue to try, as he never seems to find a lasting solution to his problems. But the poise originally established was due only to a happy combination of forces, sanskaras, that are almost cancelled each other. Final release comes as the basic motivating forces are dissolved and reabsorbed in the process of ultimate realization. This may seem a discouragingly remote solution to the pressing problem of the moment, but in such a final solution, the answer is complete and the poise absolute because the forces themselves have been annihilated and lost. So, again, more subtlety using the tug of war example. Hope, it is clear. It's basically that there will be temporary pauses replaced by preponderance of the opposite, which again brings back uh, the, the state of play to one side being heavier, one side being more powerful. Okay, continue. With the annulment of the sanskaras, the individual is freed permanently from all sanskaric determination. As a consequence, for the first time, the individual's life can express itself without latent or patent inhibitions, for it functions in the limitless understanding of truth. As a consequence, for the first time, the individual's life can express itself without latent or patent inhibitions, for it functions in the limitless understanding of truth. That's at the state of liberation. This true poise of realization, which admits no further possibility of disturbance through resurrection of any limiting tendencies, can only be obtained while the individual has a physical body. It can never come through the speeding up process of one-sided sanskaric exhaustion that takes place in the hell state or heaven state. This is the all-important reason why every individual has to come back to the gross world again and again in physical incarnation until self-realization is attained. Alternating links of the continuous chain of individual existence consist of incarnate and discarnate lives forged from periods of birth to
Sorry.
death and death. Yeah, yes, go ahead.
I can't see the screen. I'm not sure if others can.
Oh, really? Let me stop and
No, we're okay. How about saying
start again.
nice?
Oh, so it's just me. Oh, yeah. Now I saw. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay. All right. I'll read the non-highlighted first paragraph again. Alternating links of the continuous chain of individual existence consist of incarnate and discarnate lives forged from periods of birth to death and death to birth. Only in God realization can life be freed from the shackles of limited individuality. Only in God realization does the tenacious chain of recurrent incarnations reach final fulfillment and termination. It is a state of eternal existence free from birth or death. It is true immortality or deathlessness by virtue of the fact that it is above the birth and death of the body. Okay. True immortality is not the survival of the limited individual in the period following the death of the physical body. It is true that the ego mind persists unscathed through death, but the individual cannot and does not thereupon attain to final freedom from birth and death. Survival should not be confused with deathlessness, which is true immortality. The chain of alternating incarnate and discarnate life is only a survival of consciousness plus ignorance. And ignorance makes true life impossible. In fact, I think this focus, maybe I haven't noticed this earlier. Incarnate and discarnate. So, in body, out of body. Uh, so, in the reincarnations cycles, one goes through both of these, but we don't, I have not noticed, rather, I should be honest, the focus of what happens in consciousness and what happens to the individualized soul in the discarnate life as much, other than the heaven or hell state, which Discourses covers in detail. But if you notice here, he's actually saying he's I think I like the word discarnate and the fact that consciousness and the individuality of the soul goes through both of these cycles, both of these phases, incarnate, discarnate, alternatingly, right? So that's a good takeaway for me personally.
I think the only difference
Karthik.
is basically the difference between having a material body when you're having an incarnate life and the discarnate life is not having the gross physical body, because the discarnate life has both the subtle body and the mental body, and also this aspect of survival of consciousness plus ignorance. That ignorance is the ego mind. That is how I interpret it. Eva.
Absolutely. Mahu, you were saying something.
Yeah, I don't know if I understood your comment right. Is uh, you know, just more a specification on this incarnate life beside hell and heaven, right?
Correct. Now, the
Yeah.
comment I am making is more personal. I recognize the importance of the individualized soul being in some what should I say? I mean, there is some action and existence happening even during that phase, and predominantly it's just the heaven on hell state, right? It's basically in the reincarnation, between reincarnations, all you're doing is going through the heaven or hell state and picking your next uh, um, birth, right?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
But it's more than that. But maybe you can, this has always been my question. So let me first bring up my question and then I'll comment on that. Um, in different part, either discourses or other sources, Baba talks about uh, the 48 to 72 hours after you drop your physical body, and then you take the astral body, which is the not the permanent one, the temporary body. And during the time that you have astral body, uh, which is a replicate of um, your I think gross body, yeah. Anyway, it's an astral body, and during the time that you're there is when you experience heaven and hell. The 48 to 72 hours is a review time where you're, going through whatever sanskaras that you gained, bad or good, during that lifetime. Then what happens after that 72? And then I know after, 72 hours maximum, then you drop your astral body, you switch to your consciousness, actually becomes uh, aware of the subtle body. Then you take the subtle body, and during this time is, you travel like a light. You can go anywhere, you can meet anyone, and it's a different way. But I wonder what happened between the 72 hours after that and when you are ready to come back. Do you know? Does anybody know?
Okay. Firstly, I'll clarify what I have understood, and maybe others can confirm or deny. I don't think the heaven or hell state is during the 48 to 72-hour period. In fact, the 48 or 72-hour period is lost deep in sanskaras of that particular incarnation alone, but it is not a appraisal. It is not an vivification of the experiences that one has had in the whole life. Second, the idea of time as we know it ceases to exist after one is in discarnate life. So in discarnate life, the idea of time is different. Right? Third, the period I remember, I think there is a reference to it in discourses as well. The period varies in human time, or our idea of time, as to how long it takes before you take the next birth. So that period in human time is between 72 hours and the time that you take to choose the next womb, which could be different for different people and different sanskaric stages in their life. This is my understanding. Can somebody else throw light on it? So, firstly, uh, uh, someone can confirm or deny what I'm saying.
Jay Baba, I
I
think you're
Go ahead.
sorry. I think Karthik was on the right track. What I've understood, if you read the Garuda Purana or the Tibetan Book of Dead, um,
No, no, let's stick to
according
Baba, but please go ahead.
right. No, I mean those are all complement to this only. It's
Yes,
basically
yes.
that first, when you have a physical death, when you drop your gross physical body, after 3 days, the subtle body and mental body are still there. Then the subtle body leaves. Then at the end of 13 days, that's why we have this 13-day, 14-day ceremony to make sure that the soul is able to go to the astral world smoothly, because it takes a certain number of days for the subtle body and the mental body to leave the human form. I mean the human being. So that is one part which is correct. Then once you are in the after the 13 or 14 days, when you go off into the astral world, then you have the recap where you go through the heaven and hell state, where you see what you have done in your past life. Then after that comes the re-engineering part as to when you want to be born, what kind of sanskaras that you need to work on. So this is all happening in the discarnate form. So the definition for incarnate is, as long as you have a gross physical body, that is called a incarnated body. But once you drop your physical form, then you are in discarnate form. So that discarnate includes heaven and death, then the reengineering, then the next thing, and so on and so forth till you take the next birth. So that is my understanding. Hey, Baba.
Jay Baba, I don't know about that 13 or 14 days. I am, mostly agreeing what you just said, Kama. And there is a video that is done by one of Baba's, I would say, disciple, which is Phyllis Frederick. The name of it is Demystifying Death.
Mhm.
And yeah, she is the only one, only because she did have a great psychic ability. I mean, she sees your aura, she sees your past life. It's a gift that she had. Anyway, so she in that video, which is one of her talk at the Sahavas, she talks about what happened after you drop the body, physical body, and of course that's a disincarnate state of being, but she says that the gist of it is what I said. You take a temporary astral body, and through that 48 to 72 hours is when your experience, your bad sanskaras is very intense. You experience all of them, like that's why they call it the hell. And then for your good sanskaras, you experience the joy and the celebration and good things. Then, and then after that, anyway, that was my question: is that what happens after that 72 hours that your review time is done? The between that and when you already verified your sanskaras and kind of balanced it out, and what kind of sanskaras you want to work on, and father, mother, brother, whatever, in the next incarnation. um anyway, so
Okay,
and
so I think we don't
please.
have a straight answer in discourses, is my understanding. But part two covers what I was saying, and probably uh, uh, should change your mind on the 72-hour period. So if you see what I'm
Hmm,
scrolling through, it's part two.
sure.
So
Yeah,
if you go back and read part two of reincarnation and karma, here basically he describes hell and heaven states, and there is a
yeah,
subtopic specifically about time. So bodily
about time.
sensation, about, yeah,
Hmm,
here it is. Time in semi-subtle world. Here Baba says time is different. So
yeah,
yeah,
that's
firstly,
true.
uh, uh, he does not seem to indicate that all of this is happening in that 72-hour period. I
Yeah,
do
I
not think
see.
that's the case. So, in fact, the way he describes in the 72-hour period, not here, but in another place, is he says that the the body in most cases is rather the mind of the body, the individualized soul, is not able to come to terms that the body is dropped. It's that bad. It's that
Yeah.
ignorant. So I am Karthik. I die, and I'm not able to come to terms. And in fact, I'm going and tapping everybody and saying, "Hey, I'm not dead. I'm there." You know, that's how badly ignorant the soul is, because it's not able to come to terms with it. So I don't think that's anywhere
The
close to
soul,
the.
the
Uh,
soul? No, the soul is
yes,
not ignorant. No.
no, I mean not soul. You're right. Not soul. You're right. It's what should I say? The ego mind.
Yeah,
Yeah, the ego mind is at the state where it's not able to recognize that there is a temporary pause in its uh, access to the physical body of the last birth. It has lost it. It has lost that
yeah,
physical body and that corpus. It is not able to come to terms with that, but because a, especially if you are not spiritual, and
yeah,
the idea of death is more associated with fear and mystery than inescapable fact, right? So when it
yeah,
happens,
yeah.
many people go through different things. So I think
That's right.
all of those 72 hours is just that. And post that is,
Oh, I see.
yeah, and post that is when you get into the heaven and hell. And these are beautiful chapters, these two. Just go through two and three.
Yeah,
You will get a better
I
idea.
forgot about it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know I was
Okay.
pretty fuzzy on that. Thank you for
Yeah,
both of
yeah.
you to just, yeah,
All right. Thank you.
So
shed
Thank
Karthik,
light.
you.
it is
Yeah, Kama.
so Karthik, it is the consciousness of the soul which has the ego mind.
Correct. Correct. So,
See, in
in
the
fact,
human form, we
Kama
already
keeps
have
saying,
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
already,
Baba
we
keeps
have
saying
super
this.
consciousness in the human form, but it's covered by a
Yes,
layer of
e-
sanskaras. That is the whole
exactly.
point. Yeah.
So whenever we use the word soul, or when we read the word soul in discourses, Kama keeps saying it's not the soul, it's actually consciousness of the soul, because a soul, by definition, is unaffected and supreme, and it does not have attributes actually. Yeah. Right. So everywhere we have to use the phrase consciousness of preceding soul to be absolutely semantically accurate in and accurately understand what Baba is trying to say in discourses.
Yeah. And not just necessarily discourses, anywhere.
Anywhere, anywhere,
This is
perfect.
part of
Yes,
Baba's revelation. Before, Baba, people say, oh, he's such a good soul. Or
soul.
they say,
Yeah,
oh, they are so advanced soul. These people are the advanced. Soul is one. Soul is
yeah.
eternal,
Advanced
never
consciousness of
change.
soul.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Consciousness. Okay.
perfect, perfect. Good. You're all learning something and registering, internalizing, which is good. Oops, where did
Uh,
I? Yeah, yes, man. Go ahead.
just a quick comment. First of all, Karthik, thank you so much for bringing us back to Baba's teaching. The reflection that I was having in my mind, uh,
Mhm.
it's just me when Kama said Puran or something, and Mao said somebody had special ability. I try to resist my journey, of course. I try to resist either understanding any other teachings or listening to such people who have powers, because you
Hmm.
can get distracted and it may slow down your own understanding. So this lifetime for me, 100% invested in Baba's teaching. If there's some gap, I tell myself maybe Baba didn't want us to understand something because it may not be helpful for us. He's an avatar. He's given a hell lot of knowledge through his books. And if there's something which is missing in those books or some definitions which are not clear, maybe it was intentional from his side to not explain those areas. Maybe it's not relevant for us. Maybe it's not useful for us. So I try to dig into Baba's teaching, which you helped to bring us back to. So thank you very much for that.
To be fair to Kama, he used the word compliment the moment I
I
uh,
know it's
brought that up.
I was thinking about that. He
Yeah, yeah,
did.
yeah, yeah.
Intent, of course, we are all spending time with Baba here. I'm not questioning anybody's intent. I'm just
Yes.
making my
But you're
reflection.
right, you're right, you're right. And in fact, when Mahu was talking about Phyllis, a part of me
Mhm.
was saying, hey, yeah, this is occult, right? So I hear you loud and clear.
Exactly, yeah.
I strive to keep the focus of this group and personally as
Yes,
well, which is where the motivation is stronger, to be as close
absolutely.
as possible to Baba's message, so
Baba's
that
teaching, yeah.
yeah, it's I use an analogy as well, right? My famous analogy. So what you're seeking is water. What you need to get the water from is a well. So you have a choice of picking a spot and digging for water. Don't dig in 10 places. Pick a spot, and your spot this time is Baba. Just dig
Yes.
deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper, and I'm sure you'll get water.
Thank you.
You,
Thank you for
you
that.
Okay, I
wasted
need to make
efforts.
a little. I need to make a little clarification here because it's
Sure.
short time when we talk. We don't really have enough time to give explanation on a person who made and the context of their talk and so forth. So it could be
Fair.
misunderstood. The person that I was talking to about, it was by no means occult or anybody that has any power or any, claiming authority. Not at all. Phyllis Frederick is she's actually part of 120 people that is around the avatar. She met Meher Baba in 1954, and before that in 1945 in train in in New York. In 1954, they met Meher Baba in Lagoon Cabin, Meher Center, Myrtle Beach, for the first time. And how Baba appeared to her, she's explaining all that. Baba appeared to her fully in light. Well, depends on where we are. To some people, Baba appeared as a Jesus Christ. To some people, like Buddha. Anyway, but this particular talk is one of her talk that by request she did in one of the Sahavas, LA Center Sahava. She's a founder of Los Angeles Baba Center since 1972, and she's totally gifted. If you go online and search for the
There's a
Awakener
lot of,
magazine,
yes. Hmm.
there is nothing like it. I mean, that was approved by Baba, and Baba knew her gift and told her that you've got to, print such magazines, the journals, and they all scanned by Sufis available online. Sometimes I go there for a code, but what she said for me is a complimentary of what Baba has said. But in a small, of course, it was my flaw that I did it in short sentences and so forth.
Sure, sure.
People
No,
can,
no, no.
yeah, people could, and
I
I
know
say,
the position of Phyllis Frederick because I have also heard and come across so much of content. And thanks for giving more context. I did not know that she's considered as part of the 120. And I mean, with due there's no intent to belittle anybody's spiritual status or capabilities by comparing it with anything on the verge of being occult. The point, I think, bigger point that I would like to make as students, as Baba lovers, as people in Meher Baba Awakens is there is two classes of information. One, the written word of Baba. Two, everything else that everybody else said. And like there is a wide chasm between the sixth and the seventh. There should be a wide uh, difference between one and two. So what Baba has either confirmed as it having his seal of authority, and it is his word, either he has approved the publication of something that has a certain value which is much, much higher than everything else. That's all we look at. And I think we should say that uh, anything that you interpret from that is at a personal level. We are nobody to prescribe, recommend, or say this is the only interpretation. The spiritual journey is personal. The relationship with Baba is personal. There is no, you are free to make your own interpretations and uh, understanding which can be divergent from this group. And that's the main focus. We are only propelling thinking. We are only instigating questions to make us think and understand something better personally. It's not an imposition of absorption. It's not a classroom where we say, here, this is what we think it is. Right? Just putting it out there. But thanks for that clarification, Paho.
yeah, that's okay. And plus, let's not forget that we all possess the infinite false mind at this point till we get realized. So anything that we read here or in other meetings or in Baba's books is subject to our interpretation, just like you said.
Yes,
And
yes.
so depends on where we're at, where our consciousness is and how enlightened it is. We may have a different understanding, but
You're free
it's
to
all
do it.
interpretation. Yeah.
Yes, yes. Okay, let's get back. The second paragraph. Life in ignorance is the very negation of existence in truth. It is so basic a curtailment of true existence when judged by the standards of true existence in eternity. It had best be termed a continuous death. So life in ignorance is treated as a continuous death. Only in realization is consciousness emancipated from the tyranny of this continuous death which nullifies the true life in eternity. And only in liberation can consciousness arrive at that true immortality which lies beyond all curtailment and obscurity. The individual who has achieved realization of the truth is initiated into eternal and unlimited life, for the limiting ego mind, with all its attendant sanskaras, has undergone a death that is final. In this process, the limited individuality is shed and the soul is invested with unlimited divine individuality. This may be termed a journey of the soul, but it is by no means the first journey. The first journey consisted in the evolving of consciousness through the evolutionary process, starting in the most rudimentary subgaseous forms and ending in the attainment of full consciousness in the human form. This journey extends from the initial attainment of consciousness by the individual soul to birth of the limited human individuality in which full consciousness has been achieved, but a consciousness still clouded and ridden with sanskaras. Now we go to the second journey. Second journey of the soul consists in the involution of the now fully evolved consciousness through the removal of clouds of sanskaras. The removal requires the effort of numberless lifetimes and lasts from the birth of the limited human individuality to its termination in the unlimited truth. This second journey brings the individual to the unlimited and untrammeled state of infinite existence or immortality and is considered in great detail in chapter 6. The terminus of this journey is known in Sufi literature as fana fila, the final annihilation of the limited ego in the conscious state of God. At the end of the first journey, the soul becomes conscious of Maya or the illusion of duality. This domain of Maya has only imaginary existence. The entire universe, thus, in reality, is only a zero. But this zero exists for the fully evolved consciousness of the individual human being. Maya gives to the life of the individual all the meaning that it has, and the imaginary universe of Maya continues to have a semblance of reality and significance until the wayfarer arrives at the terminus of the second journey, or fana fila. In the state of fana fila, the universe disappears and has neither existence nor value. This is the true and final terminus point of the great journey. It is reached when the ego mind has met its total and final death, from which no resurrection is possible. Then only God exists as the supreme and sole reality. The universe has become a true zero without existence, even in imagination. At this terminus, the individual's consciousness is endowed with divine individuality, and he is known as Majzub-e-Kamil. At the time of the extinction of the ego mind, or limited individuality, and the conscious union of the soul in the oversoul, consciousness is withdrawn completely from the physical, subtle, and mental bodies, and these are usually dropped within 4 days. When the Majzub's body, which for him does not exist, does actually drop, it is sustained by the devotees or lovers who have been attached to him through that body. When the Majzub was a wayfarer during the second journey, he may have had several friends who loved him and expected spiritual guidance from him. The sanskaric links thus formed by such friends to the physical body of the wayfarer now cause the body of the Majzub to go on living, even though he is no longer linked in any way with it. Interesting. So the sanskaric links thus formed by such friends to the physical body of the wayfarer now cause the body of the Majzub to go on living, even though he's no longer linked in any way with it. Okay, so carry some guilt. The bhaktas or devotees of the Majzub provide sustenance for his physical body, which keeps on functioning automatically and by their link with it, the devotees derive much spiritual benefit. But all this activity of the body is completely automatic and involves no conscious interest on the part of the Majzub. After the purpose of the sanskaric link formed by the bhaktas to the physical form of the Majzub has been fulfilled, the body of the Majzub ceases functioning and is dropped. When the body of one who has arrived at unlimited truth
I'm
is
sorry, Karthik,
automatically.
can you read this part again, this paragraph, the last one, the bhaktas or devotees?
Sure.
Can you
The
read that, please?
bhaktas, yeah.
You
The
go
bhaktas,
fast.
so I'll go slow,
Mhm.
yeah. The bhaktas or devotees of the Majzub provide sustenance automatically, and by their link with it, the devotees derive much spiritual benefit. But all this activity of the body is completely automatic and involves no conscious interest on the part of the Majzub. After the purpose of the sanskaric link formed by the bhaktas to the physical form of the Majzub has been fulfilled, the body of the Majzub ceases functioning and is dropped.
Thank you. I didn't know
Yeah.
about this at all.
Yeah, so me too. I've marked it out and everything, but I've not registered it that clearly. When the body of one who has arrived at unlimited truth is automatically dropped at the end of 4 days, or is dropped after its link to the devotees has been fulfilled, the event can be properly termed neither death nor a journey. It cannot be said to be death because at the time the body is dropped, it has no connection with the consciousness of the person who was once attached to it. The link with the soul has already been snapped, and the body continues only on the universal flow of divine benevolence. Death is a severance of the connection between consciousness and the physical body. And since in the two cases just described, the body retains no connection with consciousness, they are not properly cases of death. So, what are the two cases? When the body of one who has arrived at unlimited truth is automatically, I'll read it again if you don't mind. When the body of one who has arrived at unlimited truth is automatically dropped at the end of 4 days, or is dropped after its link to the devotees has been fulfilled, as in the case of a Majzub. Okay, these are the two cases. The event can be properly termed neither death nor a journey. It cannot be said to be death because at the time the body is dropped, it has no connection with the consciousness of the person who was once attached to it because it's been 4 days. The link with the soul has already been snapped, and the body continues only on the universal flow of divine benevolence. Death is a severance of the connection between consciousness and the physical body, and since in the two cases just described, the body retains no connection with consciousness, they are not properly cases of death. I hope it's clearer in the second reading. Nor is it at all suitable to call such deaths journeys of the consciousness, for the dropping of the physical body makes no difference to the consciousness that was once attached to it. With or without the body, consciousness remains what it had become upon the complete vanishing of separative individuality, abidingly illumined and infinitely absorbed in truth.
This is the case of realization, huh? Or is
Yeah,
actually a second journey.
second
Probably is
journey.
the end
Yeah,
of second journey. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. If, as occurs in rare cases, truth realized consciousness returns to normal consciousness of the body and of the universe without diminution or curtailment of realization, this event is properly described as the third journey. This third journey is undertaken only by the perfect master, Sadgurus or Kutubs, who, upon returning to consciousness of body and universe, establish their divine and unlimited individuality in the apparent world of duality. This state of affirmation of unbounded truth in and through the universe of Maya is known in Sufi terminology as Baka Bila, or abiding simultaneously in God and in illusion. So, second journey, Panafila; third journey, Baka Bila, where you're abiding simultaneously in the creative universe as well as in realization, or God realization.
Yeah, I think that it talks about it more in detail in
God speaks.
something went wrong.
Yeah, we didn't hear you complete your statement. Can you say that again?
Saying, about this first and particularly second and third journey, it's more explained in God Speaks with its own language, because this is
Yes.
Dante's language.
Correct.
I wonder, uh, well, this is Baba's thing, but I'm pretty sure that the avatar pushes some of this soul from second to third journey. In other words, what I like to know is what qualifies them, because even at the end of second journey, your God realized. But some of these God realized or truth realized or make it to the third journey, um, which normally they're five at every avataric time. Um, I wonder what happens between second and third, that some become perfect master or top, and yeah. Anyway,
Yeah, I think it's not random. It's also driven by sanskaras and it's also predetermined. So your uh, preponderance of being in the path and also being of service, universal service, especially for helping others on the path, will make you more eligible than others to do that, alongside the proximity to avatar or perfect master. Both these
yeah.
together make you eligible for third gen.
Yes, it looks like all the three elements that you said. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, yeah.
That's very true.
Okay, now let me continue. The apparent universe now has existence for the divine individuality, but at this terminus of the third journey, the universe is realized as being nothing and having absolutely no value. The only thing that has real value is God, and the Sadguru sees that the entire universe has no reality in itself and exists only as the apparent manifestation of God. If zeros are placed after the number one, example 100,000, each zero assumes value not because it has value in itself, but because it is placed after the number one. In the Maya ridden state, the relative status of the zeros and the number one are not realized. The two are confused together so that the zeros, which constitute the physical universe, are taken to have both existence and value in themselves. In the Fana Pila state of truth absorption, all the zeros of the entire universe that have been added on to the number one have been cut out. Only the one, number one, exists, and all the zeros are actually struck through. In the Baka or Sadguru state of truth affirmation in the universe, all the zeros of the universe reappear, but they are placed from a mathematical standpoint before the number one. Example 0000001. In this manner of reinstatement, the zeros have existence but no value, regardless of how many there are. Beautiful. So you start with 100,000, but there's no value. Then it becomes, at the state of the second journey, it becomes 1 followed by struck through zeros, because you recognize the zero value in zero. And then in the third journey, after this, in the third journey of the perfect master, the zeros are put in the right place, which is they are nothing, but they do exist, or they have an apparent existence which is subservient, or should I say, less important than 1. So they are placed to the left of 1. Interesting.
The term that he uses is they have existence but no value.
Yeah,
And they
perfect.
to the left of 1.
Thank you.
Not
Yeah,
right.
to the left of 1. Yeah. In this last case, any increase in the number of zeros neither adds numerical value nor alters in any way the value of the number 1. The value neither increases nor decreases. A perfect master can perform any miracle. This does not involve any breaking of the law, because he is beyond the domain of Maya and its laws. Among those who enjoy the Sadguru state, the avatar has unique consciousness. The Sadguru experiences the state of I am God and God is everything, while the avatar experiences the state of I am God and I am everything. Man as God, that is Sadguru, sees God in everything, but God as man, avatar, sees what God as God sees, himself in everything. In fact, the avatar not only sees himself in everything, but sees himself as everything, not only as being in the many, but as being the many in exactly the same manner that he is the one. This is just so beautiful. I'm reading this highlighted portion
Very,
again.
very well explained. Yeah, I haven't
Yeah,
seen this before. Very
beautiful.
nice.
The Sadguru experiences the state of I am God and God is everything, while the avatar experiences the state of I am God and I am everything. Man as God, that is Sadguru, sees God in everything. But God as man, avatar, sees what God as God sees, and that is himself in everything. In fact, the avatar not only sees himself in everything, but sees himself as everything, not only as being in the many, but as being the many in exactly the same manner that he is the one. He is the many, he is the one, he sees himself as the one, and he sees himself as the many. Amazing words. When the avatar or the Sadguru drops his body after finishing his spiritual task in the imaginary universe of duality, he retains the God consciousness that is his continuous eternal state. This fourth and last journey of the avatar and perfect masters is the same as the second journey of the Majzub-e-Kamal. Their unlimited individualities suffer no extinction in spite of the fact that they are now removed entirely beyond the world of forms. Their individualities persist because their divine unlimited consciousness abidingly remains as the very inalienable nature of the soul, which requires no form for its locus standi. Sanskaras, or the sanskaric ego mind, can subsist only by attaching itself to some form, but no expressive medium or form is in any way necessary for the existence of divine consciousness. This, the very nature of the soul, is self-sustained. The dropping of the physical body by the avatar or the Sadguru is not death, or even while he uses the body, he is in no way attached to it and has no sanskaric link with it. Nor does the dropping of the body in these instances involve the usual survival of a limited individuality or ego mind, for these are simply non existent in the Sadguru and the avatar. Read these lines again. The dropping of the physical body by the avatar or by the Sadguru is not death, for even while he uses the body, he is in no way attached to it and has no sanskaric link with it. Nor does the dropping of the body in these instances involve the usual survival of a limited individuality or ego mind, for these are simply non existent in the Sadguru and the avatar. So, if at all there is some sort of sanskaras at play, Baba clarifies that as well. There is yoga sanskaras and vijnani sanskara. But basically, for normal understanding, we can assume that there is no ego mind and there is no sanskaras in the case of an avatar and a perfect master. Simpler to leave it like that. There, yeah.
Kartik, this is the fourth journey. Okay. This is a fourth journey, which is the language here, the explanation is a little bit different than the third journey that we saw, that analogy of 0001 versus 1000, right? In there, it did say that, trying to find the word. Yeah, it did say that the sanskaras or the sanskaras or do exist but have no value, right? It did say that sanskaras exist but have no value. But here in a fourth journey, it does say that they're non-existent. Because
no, I think the zeros and the reference in the earlier, if you're thinking the zeros represent sanskaras, no, I think zeros represent the Mayavik universe, right?
Mayavik. Look at here. In fact, it's good that you brought it.
If zeros, so the apparent universe now has existence for divine. If zeros are placed after the number one, each zero assumes value not because it has value in itself, but because it is placed after the number one. In the Maya-ridden state, the relative status of the zeros and the number one are not realized. So this is not sanskaras.
No, but
whereas the last para that we were reading is the role of
bridging between Kartik. Just roll it up a little on a third journey. The individualities. Right here. In this manner of reinstatement, the zero have existence but no value, regardless of how many there are.
Yes.
This is in a state of bhaka, where the Sadguru is. They are there, but they have no value because he has no link with it. He has no link with it. It's just there. He's using it for his purposes.
Yeah.
Okay.
But here it's not sanskaras. See again, in the bhaka or Sadguru state of truth affirmation in the universe, all the zeros of the universe reappear. The reference is not to sanskaras, but of the creative universe. The creative universe reappears. Whereas in the last paragraph, it's only sanskaras. So here, I'll read this last paragraph, the first paragraph on the last page. The dropping of the physical body by the avatar or by the Sadguru is not death, for even while he uses the body, he is in no way attached to it and has no sanskaric link with it. Nor does the dropping of the body in these instances involve the usual survival of a limited individuality or ego mind, or
Yeah.
these are simply non-existent in the Sadguru and Avatar. So the way of operations of these people are different from uh, the normal ego mind laden bodies or
Yeah.
consciousness of souls which are normal, where sanskaras drive everything. Here they operate on the operating principle is different, which, like I said, in discourses, Baba says Vijnani sanskaras and yoga sanskaras, different types of sanskaras. Even
Yeah.
there is something, but the operating
That's
principle is different from what we are used to.
They have to use that yoga sanskaras. Baba somewhere explains, because it just like brings them down. It grounds
Mhm.
them on earth.
Mm.
Because their conscious, where they're at, that body that they took has a tendency to drop itself at any time. Like, for example, they don't sleep, they just rest. Because if they
Yes,
fall asleep, they're going to join to, they're going to go to beyond state. Yeah. Um,
because they are conscious all the time. Yeah.
yeah. Anyway.
Okay. Their dropping, I'll continue the reading. Their dropping of the body also differs from the death of advanced yogis who may voluntarily drop their physical bodies after completing their work. The advanced yogis cannot discard their ego mind or limited individuality, which clings fast to them even after the severance of their connection with the physical body. But the Madzube Kamil, the Sadguru, and the Avatar embark upon a unique and direct journey to the unbounded and indivisible ocean of divinity. So, this is further distinguished from others, not necessarily normal people, even advanced yogis have a link because they have their ego mind. So, I think that's the end of chapter 1. Beautiful chapter. And we
Covered
have
a lot.
some,
Covered a
yes,
lot.
beautiful chapter, beautiful chapter. And I realized I didn't rotate the reading at all, and we are at the end of.
You were very excited to read these
After
words.
many days, I was waiting. Karthik will say something.
Oh my God! I see. I forgot. I completely forgot. Like Madhu said,
Yeah,
I was so lost and excited in this reading
which
that I
is
kept
No,
good,
going.
no, that's fine.
Yeah,
actually,
That's
which is
okay.
very
That's
yeah.
good.
okay.
That
We
that's
enjoyed
its
it.
purpose. Yeah.
Yes,
We
yes, yeah,
enjoyed it. Yeah, every bit of it.
yes,
Thank you. Thanks,
yes,
Karthik.
yes, yes. Thank you so much. At Kama, we have some homework. Let's think through, and I think this gets added to multiple places within discourses. It's not an easy task. I like what we're trying to do, but it's not easy. So let's find some time between now and next weekend to brainstorm on that and then classify this correctly and then set up a protocol for how we handle the rest of the chapters as well. And I think that's more you and me. And then anybody is free to join and help us, but we can at least do some initial work around that. Kama? Anyway, maybe he's already off. Anyway, I will get, I will end the call as well. Everybody have a great week ahead. Let us connect back on Saturday with Bal Natu. Those of you all celebrating Diwali in the coming week, a very, very happy and prosperous Diwali. And for some of you, it's New Year. So have a great time and spend that time with Baba in mind and with your families. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you,
Yeah,
Karthik.
happy
Happy
Aar
Diwali.
Diwali.
Very
Aar Meher
first. Yeah.
Baba ki jai.
Ki jai.
Avatar
Har Meher
mein
Baba ki
Baba
jai.
ki
Ki
jai.
jai.
Har Meher Baba ki jai.